You know that moment. The one where they go quiet for 2 days, maybe 3. Then out of nowhere, your phone lights up with a message that feels weirdly casual. Hey, you up? Or maybe it's a meme, or a random question they could have answered themselves. And you just sit there staring at the screen, because 5 minutes ago you were finally starting to let go. And now your whole body is pulled back in again. And the thoughts come fast. Why now? Do they miss me? Am I reading too much into this? If they care, why do they act like this? Why does it always feel close and far at the exact same time? Here's the truth nobody tells you. It's not always that they don't want you. Sometimes it's that wanting you feels dangerous to them. So no, you're not crazy. You're not needy. And this is not proof that you imagined the connection. By the end of this video, you're going to understand the 7 biggest mind games dismissive avoidants play when they want you in their life but can't bring themselves to say it directly, what's actually happening beneath the surface when they do it, and how to stop getting trapped in the cycle without shutting your own heart down. Let's get into it. Most people think the biggest relationship problem is a lack of love. But the real truth is, a lot of relationships break down because love is there and safety is not. And that matters here. A lot. Because when you're dealing with a dismissive avoidant, you're not dealing with someone who simply has mixed feelings. You're often dealing with a nervous system that learned a long time ago that closeness can feel like pressure, dependence can feel like danger, and emotional need can feel like losing control. So when intimacy rises, they don't always move closer. They often deactivate. They pull back. They minimize. They go flat. Not because nothing is happening, because too much is happening. Not mind reading, not excuse making, not letting bad behavior slide, but finally seeing the pattern for what it is. Most couples believe if someone wants you, they'll just say it clearly. But the real truth is, people with avoidant attachment often express longing sideways, through distance, through indirect contact, through practical gestures, through weird timing, through behaviors that make no sense unless you understand that their attachment system is trying to keep connection and autonomy at the same time. And here's what changes everything. If you don't understand that pattern, you will personalize every withdrawal and chase every breadcrumb. But once you do understand it, you stop calling chaos chemistry. You stop confusing inconsistency with depth, and you finally learn how to see the person beneath the surface without abandoning yourself in the process. 1. The casual reach out after distance. Here's the part no one talks about. The first mind game is the casual reach out that happens right after they feel you slipping away. Most couples see this and think, if they texted, it must mean they're ready now. But most people in relationships don't realize dismissive avoidants often reach for connection in the exact moment it feels safest to do it, when there's just enough distance to protect them from real vulnerability. That's the deeper truth. They want access without exposure. They want connection without the weight of naming it. So while you're feeling, finally, maybe we're getting somewhere, their nervous system may be saying, I miss them, but don't make this a whole thing. That's why the message is so often small, playful, low stakes, almost absurdly casual. It lets them check if you're still there without having to admit they care. The disconnecting version sounds like this. They text, "Hey stranger," and you respond, "Oh, so now you remember I exist?" Now they feel shame, pressure, walls, and they retreat. The connecting version sounds different. They text, "Hey stranger," and you say, "Good to hear from you. What's up?" That response is warm but grounded, open but not overinvested. You're not rewarding inconsistency. You're just refusing to turn one text into a courtroom. And when you do that, you stop feeding the cycle where one person tests for connection and the other demands certainty before connection can even begin. 2. The deep moment they immediately pull away from. And this is the one most couples never figure out. They give you one real moment. Then they disappear behind a joke, a subject change, or sudden emotional distance. Most couples think that means the moment wasn't real, but most people in relationships miss what's actually happening. The closeness was real, and that is exactly why they pulled away right after it. Dismissive avoidants often can do vulnerability in flashes, not yet in stays. That one late-night confession, that one long hug, that one sentence that slips out, "I don't talk to people the way I talk to you," can be completely genuine. But then the nervous system catches up, and suddenly what felt intimate a second ago now feels exposing. That was too much. Why did I say that? Pull it back. So they downplay it. They go cold. They act normal. They make you feel crazy for having felt something real. Not because it was fake. Not because you imagined it. But because emotional exposure can feel like standing outside without skin. The disconnecting version sounds like this. They say, "I actually missed you." And you jump in with, "Then why do you act like you don't care? Why can't you just be honest all the time?" Now their body hears danger, not closeness. The connecting version sounds more like this. They say, "I actually missed you." And you answer, "I'm glad you told me that." Simple, steady, no interrogation, no emotional ambush. And when you do that, you make the moment feel survivable instead of making vulnerability look like a trap door. 3. The "I need space" speech right after things get good. This is where it gets really interesting. Sometimes the mind game is not distance after conflict, it's distance after closeness. Most couples expect withdrawal after an argument. That makes sense. But most people in relationships get blindsided when a dismissive avoidant pulls away right after a beautiful weekend, a deeper conversation, or a moment where the bond actually feels real. That's because what overwhelms them is not always pain. Sometimes it's intimacy itself. If their emotional history wired closeness to obligation, engulfment, or loss of self, then a good moment can activate the same alarm system a bad moment does. Your brain calls it connection. Their nervous system may call it, "Uh-oh, this is getting serious." And that's why you'll hear some version of, "I just need space," right when you thought you were finally safe. The disconnecting version sounds like this. They say, "I need a little space." And you say, "Every time we get close, you do this. Maybe you just don't want me." Now the space becomes proof of failure for both of you. The connecting version sounds like this. They say, I need a little space. And you respond, okay, I can respect space. I just need consistency and clarity too. That is not chasing. That is not collapsing. That is secure. Because here's the thing. Not more pleading, not more proving, not pretending you don't care, but naming your need calmly while leaving room for theirs. That's what emotionally mature love looks like. And when you do that, the relationship stops feeling like a hostage negotiation and starts feeling like two nervous systems learning not to fear each other. 4. The jealousy they refuse to call jealousy. But here's what nobody explains. A dismissive avoidant can act deeply affected by the idea of losing you while still refusing to claim you openly. Most couples think jealousy only counts if someone says, "I don't want anyone else to have you." But most people in relationships miss the quieter version, the sudden curiosity about who you're with, the weird reaction to you moving on, the subtle shift in tone when they realize you're not sitting still, waiting. This is not always possessiveness in the cartoon sense. Sometimes it's attachment panic in disguise. Because once your attention starts turning away, they feel something they work very hard not to feel. Longing, fear, irreplaceability. And the internal monologue is often not, "I love them." It's more like, "Wait, they might actually become unavailable to me." That's when they reappear. Not with a confession, usually with a vibe, a question, a joke, a sudden increase in presence. The disconnecting version looks like this. They say, "So you and that person hang out a lot now?" And you fire back, "Why do you care? I thought you wanted space." Now the whole exchange hardens. The connecting version looks different. They say, "So you and that person hang out a lot now?" And you answer, "Sounds like that matters to you." That line is gold. It doesn't accuse, it reveals. It gives the unspoken somewhere to land. And when you do that, the walls between what they feel and what they can admit start to come down, without either of you having to force the moment. 5. The practical care that replaces emotional honesty. Honestly, this one confuses people the most. They show up for you in ways that matter, but they still won't name what you mean to them. Most couples are taught to measure love by emotional language, by labels, by big declarations. But most people in relationships overlook that dismissive avoidants often express attachment through usefulness, long before they can express it through emotional availability. So they fix your car, bring you soup, send the link, solve the problem, remember the appointment. And you think, if you care this much, why can't you just say it? Because practical care can feel safer than emotional exposure. Doing is controlled. Feeling is not. Research on attachment avoidance consistently shows that highly avoidant people often prefer forms of support that don't threaten autonomy or emotional dependence, which helps explain why care can come through action more easily than direct vulnerability. PMC. The disconnecting version sounds like this. They drop off medicine when you're sick, and you say, "Why do you do all this but still act emotionally unavailable?" Now their gesture gets framed as evidence against them. The connecting version sounds like this. They drop off medicine when you're sick, and you say, "Thank you. I know that's your way of showing up." And later, when the moment is calm, you add, "I also feel close when things are said directly." That is how you honor the gesture without shrinking your need. Their inner world in that moment may be whispering, "I was trying to show you." And when you can hear that without romanticizing crumbs, that's when your standards stop being rigid and start becoming real. 6. The ambiguous future talk. Here's the part that hurts. They talk like you matter, but never quite enough to make you feel secure. Most couples think the problem is commitment talk versus no commitment talk. But most people in relationships miss that dismissive avoidants often use ambiguous future language to keep the bond alive without feeling locked inside it. So you hear things like, "Maybe one day," "We'll see," "I'm not going anywhere," "I'm not talking to anyone else," "All I know is I want you in my life." And you're left hanging in the strangest emotional hallway. Not chosen, not released. Just suspended. Because ambiguity gives them two things at once: closeness and escape routes. It lets them soothe their fear of losing you, without fully surrendering to the vulnerability of choosing you clearly. Their nervous system is trying to keep one foot in connection and one foot near the exit. The disconnecting version sounds like this. They say, "I want you in my life." And you answer, "That means nothing. Either commit or leave." Sometimes that boundary is necessary. But if it comes out as pure reactivity, it turns your pain into a weapon instead of a truth. The connecting version sounds like this. They say, "I want you in my life." And you respond, "I hear that. And for me, closeness needs clarity." That sentence is clean. No begging, no bluffing, no pretending you're okay with confusion when you're not. Not chasing labels, not demanding guarantees, not settling for vibes, but asking for congruence. That's the shift. And when you do that, you stop living on hope alone and start building on something your heart can actually stand on. 7. The controlled dose of intimacy. And here's what changes everything. The final mind game is measured intimacy, giving you just enough closeness to keep the bond alive, but only in doses they can control. Most couples think inconsistency means lack of feeling. But most people in relationships don't realize inconsistency can also come from someone who feels a lot and has no safe way to stay open for long. So they're warm one night, withdrawn the next, present in private, distant in public, deep on the phone, surface level face to face. That kind of connection feels addictive because it keeps activating hope. But beneath the surface, it's often a person managing overwhelm in real time. This feels good. This is too much. Come here. Back up. The cycle isn't random. It's a thermostat. They turn intimacy up, then down, then up again, trying to keep closeness at a temperature their nervous system can tolerate. The disconnecting version sounds like this. They have an amazing connected night with you, and the next day they go distant. You send, "Last night clearly meant more to me than it did to you." Now shame takes over the room. The connecting version sounds like this. After that same distant next day, you say, "I notice when we get close, things sometimes go quiet after. I don't need perfection, but I do need steadiness." That is not a communication hack. That is identity. That is what it looks like when you stop abandoning yourself to keep a connection alive. And when you do that, your partner stops feeling like a puzzle to solve and starts becoming someone whose patterns you can see clearly enough to respond to wisely. So what do all 7 of these mind games really have in common? They are rarely about power in the way people think. They're usually about protection. A dismissive avoidant often wants the connection. They just don't yet know how to want it without defending themselves from it. And that matters, because once you understand that, you stop making one of the biggest mistakes people make in these dynamics. You stop reading every confusing behavior as proof of your unworthiness. You stop thinking, if I were more lovable, they'd be clearer. No. A lot of the time, what you're looking at is not a lack of feeling. It's a lack of capacity, a lack of safety, or a deeply ingrained pattern built to avoid emotional dependence. But hear me on this. Understanding the pattern does not mean excusing the pattern. You can have compassion and boundaries. You can have empathy and standards. You can understand why someone is withdrawn without volunteering to live emotionally starved. That's the real shift. You stop trying to decode crumbs like they're a love language. You start asking better questions. Is this person becoming more emotionally available over time? Are they capable of repair? Can they stay present when things get real? Is there actual movement, or just recurring cycles dressed up as potential? Because this isn't a checklist, it's an invitation. An invitation to become the kind of person who can recognize connection without confusing it for chaos. When you internalize this, you stop reacting to every hot and cold moment like it defines your worth. You start responding from clarity, presence, and self-respect. And whether this relationship deepens or ends, you become safer for yourself first. And that changes every relationship you touch after this. Real intimacy is not built by chasing someone who keeps almost choosing you. It's built when 2 people become brave enough to choose clarity over confusion, repair over distance, and truth over protection. The love you want begins the moment you stop calling inconsistency connection and start choosing what feels real.